Hello and welcome to Dice Punks, a tabletop role-playing podcast where we focus on playing full campaigns in less well-known systems. This week in episode 31, Luronton would really rather be left alone, but doesn't really get much of a choice in the matter. Hello and welcome. I'm Adam, your friendly neighborhood game master, and joining me are...
Hi, I'm Drew, and I'll be playing Leorian Kitar, the Baron of Tempo, who feels no sense of impending doom whatsoever at present.
Hi, I'm Robin, and I'm playing Lissa Crate, Furious Queen, and Diva of Darkness. I don't know. I'm just playing with titles.
Marvelous.
I'm Dez, and I will be playing Ramnet, ornamentally pretty and not suited for agricultural work.
Two related facts.
And a correct statement, despite arguably being more suited to agricultural work than either of your companions.
Reaping, at least,
And
if not
yet
sowing.
here we are. I have appearances to maintain.
You will hear no argument from me. So thank you, everybody. Before we get started, let's go ahead and get Ramnet's bonus XP roll out of the way.
Yeah. So that is a pair of 10s.
That'll do it.
So
One
I have XP.
mortal experience point. Is anybody spending any experience? It looks like Lissa is raising her hand.
Am I?
Yes, Miss Crate.
Yes. So I have... I forgot to double check about this. So, I have 6 mortal experience points.
Mm-hmm.
So for 5, I can promote a die to an experience die. Not experience, oh my gosh, expert die. The systems are still jumbled in my brain. And then for the additional one, I can promote that to a master die.
You have the amount correct, but the promotion costs reversed. It's 1 die becomes an expert die for 1, and then the expert die becomes a master die for 5.
Excellent.
But otherwise, yeah.
Have I mentioned that I have dyscalculia yet?
It may have come up once or twice. What is that promotion happening in?
Empathy.
Aha! So it looks then like you will be going from empathy 2 to empathy 1 plus master die. Excellent.
Yes.
And that, I think, honestly makes a lot of sense for Lissa's growth. So kudos on mechanical and narrative harmony. Any other expenditures here? All right.
None for me yet.
None for me, but probably soon.
Well,
Let the listener think about what that's going to look like, the same way I'm currently thinking about it.
He's open possibly to suggestion.
I was gonna say,
These don't come out in anything like real time, so I will not hear your suggestions, except in some very abstract way. But
echoes of the cosmos.
yeah, exactly. No, if you can violate causality to give me advice on character growth, I will absolutely listen, and I'll have some other questions for you as well.
And also how thematically appropriate, frankly.
Super, yes. Yeah.
All right. I think that leads us into our recap of last session, which this time is courtesy of Lissa. Take it away, Furious Queen.
Are you there, Dosk? It's me, Lissa Crate. I'm in the middle of an unwanted family reunion, even beyond Meemaw. If you were here, you would be absolutely appalled by my sister. But are you here? Is that how the whole god thing works? Anyway, I wish that I could have showed you the Honeydew Inn in Luronton. They have some really good drinks for a cozy small town establishment. I found out that Mabia was responsible for the death of someone close to Leorian. Aldri. I retired early to my room. Unlike me, right? After learning about this, because, well, it's one thing to hear of those horrors from you, and another to hear it from a near stranger that Mavia has hurt. And as much as I try to distance myself from that damage, I feel responsible because I'm the one that keeps letting myself go. Well, that got deep pretty quickly. Happier things. Ramnut and Leorian connected with a nomad salesperson downstairs while I wasn't sleeping, and not in the fun wasn't sleeping way, in case it needs clarification. They were kind enough to put a good word in for me when they saw some of her wares, but then became distracted by the sights of crops by night where desert ruled during the day. In my case, I felt weirdly rejuvenated the moment the last of the sun's rays vanished into darkness. Darkness. That's a part of me now. Wild, right? As I made my way back downstairs, I finally encountered Feywa, and she sold me a bloodstone ingot. I can't wait to see what I can make with it at the forge. I tried to do her a favor and use a miracle on her, the old better than coffee kind, but it just kind of absorbed into her like a drop in the ocean. It was weird. Anyway, we spoke with the gnomes, the tutelary spirits of the fields. Leorian was especially useful in this. You chose well. Woke Rowena to summon some farmers, and had our community plant just a field of wheat as a miraculous experiment. I bought them all drinks, of course. We went to bed tired. That night, I dreamt of Apatia flying through a starlit sky and weeping. I woke myself by calling out to her, just in time to see the sun rising, the desert return, and in time to see a lone figure cresting one of the dunes.
Excellent. Thank you. That was both practical and extremely entertaining. We rejoin our action
Overtones of Mary Margaret.
Right, yeah.
We rejoin our action not actually at that exact moment, but by backtracking a little bit to the previous night, because we had overlooked in our haste to conclude last time something that, of course, had happened before Ramnet turned in. So, Ramnet, you are in the room that you are sharing with Leorian, getting ready for bed, the Honeydew Inn in Luronton.
Yep.
Having, the fields all have been planted. You've had some time to yourself, here, before, Leorian comes back in. And how are you choosing to use this time?
I told an old man that I would check in on him.
So, how do you go about trying to do this?
I will close my eyes and reach out sort of in the way that Lissa described at the table for Leorian, and try to find myself, which is a distressing thought if one could be contained within Croesus' tier.
It takes you a moment before you feel like you hit the sweet spot. This is all still quite new to you, despite how natural it feels at other times. But with only a few minutes kind of searching around for the correct mental and spiritual posture in your head, you feel a brief onrushing, and then a different type of rushing, the rush of sitting up very suddenly in bed, gasping for breath, sweat streaming off of an unfamiliar brow that is for the moment yours, and the creaky voice of Croesus Tyr in his unlit bedroom with the curtains drawn, silk dressing gown and bedding tussle around him. He says, "Who's there?" in a voice rough with sleep.
I told you I would check in on you.
Saying this with his mouth, it gives you the uncanny sensation of hearing through his ears his own voice in your intonation, and he recoils from, well, nothing that he can see, and pushes himself back against the headboard.
I find myself newly able to do so. You may find some discussion with Melly to be apt for how best to come to terms with this.
Melly, what do you want? What is it that... What can I... What's your price for going away? Never darkening my thoughts again.
Oh no. That is not how this works. Money will not save you here. As your grandson was in charge of nothing, it may help you to know that I am in charge of murder.
It's odd to feel somebody physiologically respond with fear to something you have said while you are in their body. You are not feeling fear, but you are feeling the feeling of fear. The goosebumps, the hollow pit in the stomach, the tightening of the scalp. Uncanny.
So, I do not mean that as a threat. It is a statement of how the world works at the moment.
I see.
And the point of this is, if I were to withdraw from you, so my understanding goes, you would die. Not because I am in charge of murder, but because that's apparently how all of this shit works. So you don't actually want me to go away.
So I'm stuck with you. Great. Just how I imagined spending my twilight years. Well, you must have come to me for a reason. What is it you want from me?
I said that I would be checking in on you.
Yes, well, I'm an old and sick man in his bed in the early evening because I am old and sick. Have you checked in to your satisfaction, my lord? Ah!
Tell me about the repairs in the wharf. I assume there are repairs going on in the wharf district.
Of course there are repairs. This wharf is the lifeblood of our city. So, there are repairs going on. I don't keep track of them in minutia, but my family tells me they should be done in a month's time at most. Already, people are getting their livelihoods back. Homes, you'll be happy to hear, were the first thing on the list of repairs. In no small part due to your...
I am happy to hear that.
Menacing.
Thank you.
It helped me get it through the Merchants' Council with a minimal fuss. So.
Good. How are people reacting to that?
I suppose with relief. I don't speak to them. I barely leave my room anymore.
You may find that a less exploited population is happier to work for you.
Yes. I don't know how old you are, but I've been around for a long time. I don't exploit anyone for the joy of it. I simply try to make sure that I am not among those exploited in as humane a way as I can. So, the wharf repairs are ongoing. What else would you have of me?
I'm glad to hear that. Nothing at the moment, just that you consider the degree of humaneness of remaining not exploited. Have a good evening, Croesus.
Yes, well, you as well, I suppose. He lays back
I'll
down.
Stick around for another...
So yeah, you're around for him to lay back down and close his eyes and desperately try to ignore your continued presence for a moment. You get the feeling he will probably be a little while in returning to sleep, but you would be surprised if during that time, however long it lasts, he so much as moved or blinked in his determination to appear to be sleeping soundly.
Before I leave him, I will smile with his mouth.
Give me a second, I gotta roll. He fights the smile with everything he has, and you do win out, but it takes an impressively long time. And you can feel his cheek muscles cramping by the time you're done.
Even better.
After that, you return to your own mind to find that you can hear Leorian on the stairs bidding Lissa good night as they turn in. And then you do the same. We fast forward now to the point at which we had left off last time in the morning, post-dream sequences. And you have rooms next to each other. Anybody looking out either window in either room will see the dunes are back in the early morning light. And there is in the distance, on top of one of the taller dunes, a figure sort of cresting one. Hard to see anything at this distance more specific than that. But at least through this window, you can see dunes, and you can see somebody traversing them in a way that implies they are not following roads through the Vales.
I am very, very tempted to use an aspect miracle point to see this person. But I feel like you would make me roll sense plus sight.
I would not. That's actually the point of using an aspect miracle. Level 1 aspect miracle gives you high level human performance, so you could see as clearly as a person could see with one aspect miracle point.
So I'd probably have to spend 2.
That would be free for me, correct?
I'm sorry?
Oh yeah, you're
correct?
aspect 1.
Yes, as you are aspect 1, that would be free for you.
You may want to drop another point on it.
And that said, you don't know this, and I'm not telling. So I will leave you to do as you may. Yeah, no, I'm just gonna do the thing, not spend a point.
Okay.
So the most information that you can get Rumnet from using miraculous aspect to look. Fortunately, this miracle is on yourself, not on the target of your vision, so penetration doesn't enter into it. And as they crest the dune and start coming down the near side, you can see that at first you take it to be an inhuman shape, but squinting a little bit, you can see it is actually 2 shapes: a human and something that looks like a very, very large bat, sort of gliding down. Bat puff. Well, so to be clear, and only Romnet would know this, you've all seen Puff relatively close up. This shape is quite a lot bigger than Puff, so it does not rule out that Puff is a shapeshifter, but this does not currently look like Puff just due to scale.
Not Puff! Not Puff!
The human figure is, you think, on the solidly built side, but they are swathed in a lot of fluttering cloth, so it's hard to tell, and that's pretty much all that you get from squinting into the distance with, best possible human sight.
Okay.
Well, I guess I go downstairs and get breakfast if Romnet is not doing and taking any further actions.
You go downstairs, and you are the first of your trio to arrive in the common room, and Master Owain is, quietly directing, the beginning of serving breakfast. The common room bustles somewhat, not perhaps as much as it probably should during this season, but, Luronton is a relatively, sort of well-trafficked area in the Vales, and people come here quite a lot. So there are a lot of people getting an early start through the desert heat and needing to, tank up on eggs, grits, and sausage before they go. And so breakfast is well underway. Fortunately for Luronton, things like dairy and livestock are less, not unaffected, but less affected by the desertification. They can eat, they can graze at night. Livestock can, and they can, be milked or slaughtered during the day just the same. So the grits are actually the dearest thing on the plate currently. and you set yourself up with a plate of breakfast and a clay mug of impossibly fresh milk to go with it. Leorian, Romnut?
If I'm later in coming down, it's partly because I have been furiously scowling at the returned desert with the sight. Not expecting to see my good friends, the tutelary spirits, but insisting that I should be able to somehow for several minutes.
For what it's
And
worth,
pinging on Lissa's mental radar.
Yeah.
you can see tutelary spirits. They're even gnomes. They're just sand ones.
And sure.
You mentioned this.
I think I'll report at breakfast, and I will do it angrily. I will refer to them as the imposters. And then I will angrily slug down the impossibly fresh milk once I have arrived downstairs.
Unbeknownst perhaps to myself, I am leaning slightly closer to Leorian, like someone who has smelled fresh bacon, except it's rage.
Nom nom.
Is the equivalent of a lodestone in this case a list stone?
I dare say so.
Yeah.
Nothing out there but imposters, I say, seething a little.
You actually, having said that out loud, hear from startlingly close behind you Feywa's voice saying, "Imposters? What are they imitating?"
The good soil of the Vale, but they're doing a very poor impression indeed, in my humble opinion. I shovel something else into my mouth, whatever's on my plate. I don't look.
I pull a chair up for Feywa, but remain close-ish to Leorian since,
Yeah, fuming. Feywa takes the seat and murmurs her thanks, and as soon as she's seated, Puff hops out of her hood onto the table, and she puts down her plate, her mug, and a saucer of milk with a little lump of grits in it for Puff, who immediately starts lapping at it, ever so cutely.
I will, reach a hand over as if to, let him inspect it and approve or not for pets.
He swivels his head so that he can still lick the milk while looking suspiciously at your hand, and remains in that posture until either the milk is at too low a level for him to get, or you pull your hand back.
I will very slowly and cautiously, and stopping if he, reacts poorly, run one finger over his head down his neck.
His ears flick, and he regards you with somewhat narrowed eyes as though offering reproach, but allows your cautious little pet, and once you have finished it, relaxes some and goes back to his breakfast. Feywa, for her part, says, "Puff likes you. Well, as much as he likes any stranger. Don't take it personally."
Of course.
I am chewing a too full mouthful and taking it personally.
So the imposters, the spirits, I assume. Is there any way that you could talk to them and see why they're not, dirt?
That seems like a good plan. I mean, I bet they're as confused as anybody. I bet they don't like this any more than I do, and that's not very much, if that wasn't clear. I'm going to do that right now. I shovel whatever is left on my plate into my mouth, and I storm out to go talk to the tutelary spirits of the dunes.
I follow.
Leorian doesn't catch this, and Lissa probably doesn't, seeing as she is following, but as you shovel the rest of your food into your mouth and storm off, Thela gives your plate a somewhat critical glance, but says nothing. Puff has gone to nibbling at his grits in the meantime. Ramnet, do you remain at the table, or do you accompany the other two outside?
I'm finishing my breakfast.
Fair enough. So we'll join our Nobilis outside and then check back in with Ramnet and Fewa. So you troop outside. Would it be accurate, Drew, to say that you are stomping?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No question.
He's stomping. I'm beaming.
I'm not sure I noticed that I am currently nourishing her, but I might be too nourishing right now to notice that. But I stomp over. I find I look around as though to find an especially meaningful dune. I'm angrier when they all kind of just look like dunes. And then I take a handful of sand and I try to gather my thoughts, but what comes out is, who sent you?
The question is met by surly confusion, like asking somebody who clearly does not work at an establishment if they work there.
This snaps me out of it slightly, but only just. I say, I'm sorry, as though I've realized you're not the manager. You can't. We're in this together, really. And I say, I'm sorry, we're off on the wrong foot. Luronton, hey, so you here, there was dirt. Now there's not. There's you. There's sand. What's up with that? How is it that you can be, and why are you? And it's not your fault. And you seem like you seem great, but why are you here?
This is amazing.
Wow.
I do love, too, that to anybody without the sight, you are literally just, like, haranguing a handful of sand. And it's, like, slowly streaming out through your fingers, too.
If I notice this and I try to catch the stream with the other hand.
Anakin.
It gets everywhere.
Why are you so coarse and rough and irritating?
So... my inclination is to try to make this a charm plus graces, since you are trying to smooth things over.
Sure.
So that's going to be 3 dice.
Okay, yeah. I accept that. I got off easy for how weird the thing I'm doing is. Oh, and hey, that's 2 9s.
Nice.
Oh no, I'm sorry,
Nice.
That is a 6. That is a 6 and a 9, actually, so that's nothing.
Oh,
Sorry.
nice.
It is nice. It is only nice. Merely that.
Merely
2 kinds of
nice.
Yeah.
So you try to mollify the sand, but now what you have in your hand is the countless granules of silica version of an offended adolescent. And they sort of refuse to engage, not quite pretending not to hear you, but giving the sand spirit equivalent of like a one shoulder shrug without turning to face you.
So,
did you know Sand is a teenager? The news gets worse.
Sand is a teenager. I just kind of laugh for a moment. And then I'm going to do my usual shtick, a lesser creation of fury, inciting frustration and the tutelary spirits imposters at the fact that they shouldn't be here in the Vales. Their glory should be witnessed, but then the wastes, and here it is going to waste. They should be part of much larger dunes outside of the Vales.
Okay. Roll Command Inspire, which for you is 1 plus a master die, and try to get a 6 or higher.
Ugh. Okay. Oh,
So basically,
I got a 6.
6 or higher.
Mm-hmm. All right, that'll do it.
I got exactly what I needed. That was nice.
So the sand becomes agitated. It actually seems to be experiencing something of a localized windstorm. And it's iffy for a moment whether or not this is going to kind of resolve in the direction that you want it to. And it only kind of does. The gnomes of sand that are present here are honestly pretty happy to be here. Sand spreads. That's what it does. And they're, to the degree that they are enraged in the way that you have tried to inspire them here, is actually that they are not welcome. They are offended that they have not been shown as nice a welcome as they think they deserve, and so some of that turns into an inclination or a desire to be back where they're appreciated.
Yeah, you should be angry at your reception here, and it's not getting any better. Just go home.
Speaking of teenagers,
I hear her say that, and I think we're doing a bit together, and I kind of scowl at whatever sand is still in my hand.
Let us pause there for just a moment and head back inside for a moment. Romned, it's you and Fewa and Puff at the table, finishing your breakfasts. Fewa seems perfectly comfortable to continue eating in silence, but probably would not object to conversation either should you wish to broach any particular topic.
I'll make some small talk, try to, learn a bit more about her travels in the wastes, whether she's encountered other demigods before, but, that as a, this is unlikely, but,
Sure.
worth inquiring.
Yeah. Roll your charm, which I think would normally be a charm plus graces, but for you, thanks to your romantic outlaw charm, is going to be fascinate. 3 plus a master die.
Yeah, so that is a pair of 6s, becomes 3 7s.
Oh, yes, it does. And so you make small talk with Fewa. You find that she has, over some modest but still impressive number of years, traversed the Carolan wastes all the way to their other side, which almost no Taraxans claim to have ever done. She reports that there is a country, and in her words, not so very different from this one, on the other side, that the Carolan traders also have commerce with. And she, says she's been doing this for almost as long as I can remember. About demigods, she says, I suppose I've run into a couple who seem to have something in common with your traveling partners, but, well, they haven't taken much interest in me, and nor I in them.
Reasonable. Probably safer.
Didn't catch that?
I whispered we're interested.
Indeed. So, let's zoom back out to the sand for a moment. Lissa and Leorian are charming, cajoling, miracling this sand, and have just, Leorian has just sort of tried to yes and, Lissa's gambit here, when there is a whoosh crunch from a little ways up the dune, and you sort of whip your attention around, and there at the end of 2 sort of slide tracks down from the top of it is a fairly striking figure, sort of sun-darkened with dark curly hair that's been swept back under some sort of cloth head covering wound around the top of the head, sides, back of the head, neck, presumably to keep the sand out. Probably the first thing that Leorian notices is that there is a bat approximately the size of a retriever perched on this person's left shoulder. That it fits there at all is a testament to the stoutness of their frame. Then, you start to notice kind of the other things about the person that I'm about to describe to Lissa. Lissa, the first thing that you notice is that this person is outfitted as a smith. You don't recognize the exact, sort of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Design of their tools. They are slightly different from what you would expect to see, which tells you that they are not of Taraxan make, but unmistakably they have, sort of a visible carrying case for an extremely fine hammer, some tongs, files, things like that are all visible here. They are not wearing an apron, but you can see where it is rolled up on their pack.
Yay! Not actually said out loud, but
Sure.
rather with the beaming of my smile, the straightening of my spine, and I wave at them.
They have a sort of consternated look and give you a small wave back and a considering expression, and in a voice with an accent that even actually, Lissa, you are probably expecting a Carolan accent, but that's not what this is. You don't think you've ever heard anybody speak this way before. Leorian, you certainly haven't. But they ask, are you talking to that sand?
It occurs to me for the very first time that there might be something strange about that. And I consider lying, and then I do not lie. I say yes, and it's not being very cooperative.
I look at them with the sight. Do I see an Octoritas or anything of note?
You do see an Octoritas, fairly middle of the road one, around the person. You also see a fairly weak one around the bat.
That's fun, maybe. I follow up Leorian's comment with, well, as you likely know, there's tutelary spirits here, and that's who we're addressing, not the grain of sands, of course.
They make a dismissive gesture with their left hand. No, of course, but talking to tutelary spirits is famously a waste of time. They don't have the minds for it. If mortals barely do, then what chance do spirits have?
I look at the sand still in my hand as though to say, sick burn.
Alright, my smile slightly freezes, and I address the stranger saying, oh, and I take it that you have the mind for such things. Perhaps we should converse over a drink?
The stranger sort of looks considering and says, perhaps we will have to take... is it an IOU?
A rain check, which may not happen much here, considering desert.
Right. That was the odd thing about the phrase. Well, you have to take a rain check then. We are looking for someone, and unfortunately do not have time for leisure.
Who are you looking for?
Oh, straight to the point then. Well, there is a traveling merchant of sorts who has crossed our community and, well, evaded our attention for a frustratingly long time. So, myself and my partner, nodding at the bat, have been deputized to seek her. Have you met Fewa?
My name is Lissa Crate, by the way. I didn't mean to cut off an introduction. What's your name?
Feralda. They give a slight bow. Not quite mocking, but not serious either. And gesture at the bat on their shoulder and say, "This dapper gentleman is Tohil." The bat, to your surprise, says in what I am going to cheekily describe as a Markiplier voice, "Charmed."
It's a pleasure to meet you both. I look at the bat. Apologies for not addressing you sooner. You are very charming indeed.
Charmed indeed. Leorian, by the way. I bow, unceremoniously dropping the remaining sand in the process.
The bat is interesting. Tohil does not move his mouth when he speaks. He's not speaking vocally, but creates the sound in the air. You're not hearing it in your mind. Tohil's body language is very much that of a bat, like wings furled like this and kind of head tucked down, eyes kind of flitting around a little blearily. But, he seems very well spoken, and indeed says, "Well, I wouldn't expect you to think of someone of my stature as participating in a conversation without having been warned, now would I?"
But very important question, because it's actually distracting me from staying in character. Is he more of a fruit bat in complexion, or more along the lines of a pygmy bat, vampire bat? Like, what flavor of bat are we talking about here? Because it's very important. Please say fruit bat.
I suppose Tohil is more fruit bat than anything else. Kind of a reddish color of fur on the neck and shoulders that you can see, and a darker color on a prominent, vaguely kind of canine-ish snout. Big, kind of predator-facing eyes. It's funny, bats with their wings wrapped around them, kind of standing still, already look a little bit like they're overdressed, but having then heard him speak and, comport himself, he suddenly looks, sort of more dignified and self-possessed. Thoralda, for their part, is just kind of lightly rolling their eyes at this whole exchange.
That sounds right.
So,
you said this person you're looking for, they crossed you, as in the group you. Who, if I may ask, is that?
Who is you?
Tohil
I said in a lot more words.
Tohil begins to answer with "we," but Thoralda cuts him off and says, "Should talk inside, or somewhere that is not the side of a dune in a public place."
Here's game mechanic question.
Uh-huh.
What is the range of a miracle, and does line of sight have anything to do with it?
Line of sight doesn't usually have something to do with it. It's like the sort of thing that you would want to have for like Dosk's Zhuping, because you don't want to pass through something that you don't know is there. So line of sight can play in, but generally speaking, miracles are only limited by their efficacy.
Okay. So, here's what I would like to try.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do a lesser creation of fury on Fava's grits.
What?
Yes, continue.
Specifically to actually, she doesn't have an Ectoritas, right?
You have no idea.
I'm going to try a lesser creation of fury on her because I feel like this would be more direct as opposed to making her grits magically spell something out like they're in a cartoon. I don't know why that didn't occur to me right away. But actually, no, Feywa. We're sticking with Feywa. I'm thinking this through as I'm going. Clearly, I'm gonna do this sort of restless fury that, you know, like you need to just be alone. You're just suddenly angry at the sheer presence of people around you. In hopes of driving her back up into her room and away from these people until we have a better sense of what's going on.
Okay, so yeah, you have not detected any kind of Auctoritas on Feywa, but of course you did have that weird effect when you miracled her, and her explanation was pretty cryptic. Bordering on evasive, but pretty polite, within that. So go ahead and roll your Command Inspire to get sort of the fury response that you are aiming for.
2 4s.
All right. You have that sensation again, like your miracle is cannonballing into a pool only to find that the pool is actually an ocean and storm. But you do feel it kind of take. We're going to freeze in that exact instant and track back to indoors. Romnet, you and Feywa have been conversing politely, small talk. You've learned, a little bit about her, like I had kind of talked about before. She eventually got a little bit off track, kind of talking about Puff, which was adorable. That the first time he had grits,
because why fucking not?
The first time he had grits was here in Luronton a few years back, and it quickly became one of his sort of favorite little indulgences when they're traveling through the Vales. And then she, almost immediately upon having finished eating, sort of pauses and looks considering, and then very sort of politely wipes off her mouth with a handkerchief produced from her own little sort of she wears pockets kind of on the outside of her dress, tied around her waist. They have little floral embroideries on them. She pulls a handkerchief out of one and sort of dabs at her lips and puts it back and says, "I believe that there might be something going on out of doors that concerns me. Would you please excuse me?" And she politely gets up. As she stands, Puff goes from where he had been sort of curled up next to his now empty bowl and springs back into her hood. And she thanks you for your company and walks not to the front door, but past the bar into the kitchen and turns towards the back of the building. Master Owain does not seem to take any particular note of her passage into his kitchen.
So, as she leaves, I would like to have a look at her with the sight, which I don't think I've done either before.
Yeah, at Feywa, as she retreats.
Well, by that I mean that I don't think that I have used the sight before.
Right. So this is, of course, not the sort of thing that involves a roll in vanilla Nobilis. But I do kind of want you to make a roll anyway, because it's fun to have some unpredictability sometimes. Fortunately for you, this is a pretty strong roll for you. Sense plus Eerie is 7 dice.
You bastard, I love you.
Hey, I have to be good at something. Also, separately, somebody has to be good at sense things.
Yes.
That is 4 5s.
All right. You use the site, and at first just appears like any other mortal, but your gaze lingers for a moment that, you're not entirely sure why. Something just kind of pricks at your senses, and you sort of take a fresh look, and there is a sense of almost like a spiritual heat haze. It's slight, but it surrounds Feywa out to a ways, almost back to where you're seated at your table as she moves away. You're not entirely sure what that might mean, but that's what you get. Yeah. So Feywa exits in that direction, and let's jump back out to our frozen moment there, where Lissa has just miracled to engender this. And there's sort of a moment where an unspoken exchange seems to happen between Thoralda and Tohil. And there's a decisiveness to it when Thoralda looks back at you and says, "Yes, let's go into the inn," and starts trooping past you back towards town. You're not far from town, but walked out to the dunes.
I do my best to catch up to both of them and say, I haven't really gotten really good about asking this question yet, but who's your goddess?
I've been trailing behind, and I pick up the pace at this question because I don't want to miss the answer.
Sure. Thoralda gives you a little bit of like a sidelong glance, seeming to consider how to respond, but Tohil immediately, sort of swivels his head toward you. Again, very much the bat in body language and gesture, physicality, but maintaining the somewhat heavy-lidded eye contact of a bat during the day, says, "Why? I serve Zalaban, the god of the depths of the earth, my domain. Stone and metal, perseverance, ruler of all the subterranean realms."
I owe a lot to him as someone who knew their way around the forge, both as a mortal and as a nobilis.
You almost don't hear it over the squirk, squirk, squirk of the sand, but Thoralda very softly snorts at that.
And do you work for the same god, Thoralda?
They sigh through their nose slightly and says, "I do not. My god is Narim." And then they pause so that they can face Lissa squarely and say, "Narim is imperator of forged crafts, the inferno and consumption, ruler of Nara."
I like them.
That's a good pull. That's great. Wow, good ones.
Yeah,
Good ones.
a good combination too. So, is this? I kind of blush and I say, "So, the nobilis of two gods working together, a common thing?"
Tohil says, "Oh, not at all. But our imperators are, well, siblings of a sort, both in nature and by adoption. Not that they have parents, but of course, but they've adopted one another in a certain way. And Thoralda is looking resigned at this point as they continue their journey back into town. You're passing through outbuildings currently. And Thoralda says, "Yes, well, it is an unusual arrangement, but we are quite happy with it."
I can see that. I kind of straighten up a little bit and say, "Well, I'm a Nobilis of the Obsidian God, so not as many accolades to the big they them Elstairs, but a lot of metals and a lot of minerals come from darkness."
The reference to the big they them Elstairs gets a tight smile out of Thoralda, though the attempt to link darkness to metals and minerals will require you to roll charm plus graces, 5 dice.
Thank you for the refresh, because I was about ready to frenetically scroll in that direction. Oh, a pair of ones. That was by the skin of my teeth.
You have certainly avoided giving offense, at the very least.
Excellent.
Tohil, being the more genteel of the two, at least so far, says, "Right you are. We perhaps have a fair bit in common. Obsidian, of course, is an interesting exception in some ways, in that it does not usually occur so much in the depths and darkness as it does in fiery eruptions from the deep." Now, Tohil is a bat and has the body language and expressions of a bat, yet you can't help but imagine that you saw his eyebrows, sort of do one of those little kind of quick up and downs on the end there. You're sure that didn't happen, but his voice sold it so very well that you kind of saw it anyway.
Tohil is marvelous.
Yes. I'm just over here internally squealing right now.
During this exchange, you arrive back at the steps leading into the Honeydew Inn, and Thoralda stops just shy of the step, looking at the two of you mildly expectantly.
I open the door for them with a little bit of a flourish, and as I do so with a smile, I say, "May I have the privilege of buying you both breakfast if I can't interest you in drink?"
Thoralda nods their assent, while Tohil says, "Well, if this place has any of their namesake melons, I would be delighted."
I have it on good authority that Master Owain has some delightful fruit cups, of which melons are included.
That should do nicely. This as Thoralda carries him on their shoulder into the common room. You enter to see the room much as you had left it some minutes prior, with Romnet seated alone instead of with Fewa and Puff. Romnet, you see this quartet enter, conversing among each other, and there is a desert traveler with a massive bat on their shoulder entering, talking to your friends.
I will wave at them.
Thoralda sort of raises a questioning eyebrow in Lissa's direction upon seeing the wave, but is already sort of taking a step in that direction.
This is my good friend Romnet. He is a prophet of the Obsidian God.
Thoralda with Tohil on their shoulder, heads over to the table, while Tohil turns to Leorian and says, I'm sorry, I think we may have left you somewhat out of the introductions. I caught your name, but not your estate or affiliation. Are you also of the Obsidian God? Ramnet, you are hearing this bat talk. Slowly heads are turning in the direction of this group making their way.
Yeah,
to the table.
I am also just sort of one eyebrow slowly climbing my forehead.
Yeah, conversations are falling silent all over the common room.
I have already acclimated myself completely to the idea that this bat talks, and instead my focus is completely on the fact that I am vibrating with having, been waiting to be asked this question, and having the opportunity to answer it. I say, no, actually, it seems that we, too, are like you, a fellowship, as it were, among the servants of multiple imperators. For my god is Dusk, imperator of nothing.
That's right. That's exactly why I was asking about the two imperator things. Romnut, these are my good friends Thoralda and Tohil. We just met them outside.
Thoralda gives you a polite nod, whereas Tohil says, I'm sure the pleasure is mine. Mortal? Prophet. Pleasure to make your acquaintance either way. And then Tohil's head swivels bat-like back to Leorian and says, God of Nothing. I haven't heard that one before. Dusk,
he's new.
You say?
He's new. He's quite new.
Oh. That doesn't happen often, as far as I'm aware.
No. Oh, he's remarkable. He's remarkable. He said to me that I'm a Baron of Tempo, by the way, if I didn't mention. It's all kinds of cool time stuff and music stuff. There'll be time for that. You see what I did there? So he said to me, I'm in charge, as it were. He said, as it were, of Tempo, yes, but also of Nothing, of course, Shadow, Flare. And I don't know if he meant flare as in the sun or flare as in dressing well. I couldn't quite tell. Rot, that sort of thing.
I do a very polite applause, but very quiet.
Sorry.
Also, like, your character's increasing resemblance to, like, William Shatner's spoken word album is magnificent.
Can we add a premium to the Patreon where Leorian will perform Rocket Man? Because sure, why not?
You record it. I will put it on Patreon.
You heard it first here, folks. The new Patreon perk.
I'm not committing to doing it, but I'm definitely not committing to not doing it.
That's what is it? At ETAOpod on Twitter if you want to get Andrew to hound him to do this.
Sure. Fill my DM. Look, if people fill my DMs with those requests, I will get on my bullshit.
You need to give us a specific number so we know how many people we have to get to fill in your
Patreon
DMs.
literally has this feature where you can set a number of people.
It's true.
All right.
What is that number?
We'd have to decide on it. I don't know. We'll talk out on peaks.
Sounds good.
Okay. Back under control. More or less. During this whole explanation, Tohil looks like a bat. Thoralda starts off looking politely interested and then starts to look bored, and then right as you're finishing sort of perks up, and before they can say anything, Tohil says, have you sensed her? And Thoralda gives a sharp nod and sprints out of the common room, with Tohil taking wing as they pass through the door.
Well, I'm going to follow them.
All right. Well, anybody else? Going
Yeah.
with Lissa.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think I'm following as well.
All right. Everybody takes to their feet and follows this unusual duo out of the inn. Thoralda is running around the inn to the right, and Tohil is flying up over the inn as they pursue, presumably, Fewa. If you're following Thoralda on the ground, you round the inn through a narrow alleyway between it and a storage building to its right, between it and the next inn over, and then very quickly weave between some houses out into the desert in the direction of the coast, roughly a west-northwest trajectory, sort of past the outbuildings of the town, where you would be passing through farms if the dunes weren't there. And all at once, the dunes shift. They become maybe not quite the lightning sands from the Princess Bride, but they shift and flow beneath your feet. This affects all 4 of the Nobilis on the ground, but of course has no effect on Tohil as he continues to fly. Immediate reactions from our player characters to the sand beginning to flow and shift under their feet.
Is aspect 1 enough to keep me running?
It's enough to keep you moving. It takes
Okay.
at least as much energy as running, but it is much slower and more uncertain now.
Sure.
But yes, you can continue to go in the direction that Thoralda was headed. They are actually struggling somewhat with the sand, kind of moving minimally forward, but managing to keep themselves kind of out of the sand. Leorian, Lissa?
Trying to figure out how much of a domain miracle it would be to slow the sand down. And I assume that would be, at the very least, a lesser creation of tempo, or a lesser preservation, perhaps. Wouldn't be a ghost miracle, I assume.
Mm-hmm. I could get you a ghost miracle for local and short term. Like if you wanted to do a different ghost miracle for each time your foot touched down just in the area of your foot, it would take all of your concentration, but you could do it. If you wanted to have something that you could fire and forget, lesser preservation of the previous tempo at which the sand was moving would do it.
I grab my 2 companions and I do a ghost miracle with each footfall. Whatever else they're doing, they are being buttressed by me at least a bit on walking as though I'm on completely stable ground.
Okay, yeah. It doesn't let you guys run, but it does, keep you from sinking, and you can kind of move forward a little bit. Lissa?
I am being buttressed so by Leorian, I'm going to do a lesser creation of fury and the tutelary spirits of the air directly around me, being very specific in that because I don't want to throw Tohil off necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And see if I could convince them to, support us further, because the sand is currently kind of taking on some of the air's qualities, and that it is flowing and ebbing in a way that's seeking to imbalance us in the way that the best winds do. And how dare it try to take on the qualities of its own element?
Command plus inspire, difficulty 4 or higher.
Okay.
The reasoning behind that difficulty being that your appeal to the air makes sense to its nature, but also the thing you're actually asking it to do is contrary to its nature.
So that's a pair of 8s with my master die, all told.
Marvelous. So yeah, you now have Leorian's focused ghost miracles as well as the loose alliance of sylphs around you in the air, kind of helping to keep you, buttressed a little further, and your speed picks up a pace.
I would add only that when I see my ghost miracle is working, I say, "Not so quick now, sand."
Oh, that's a gritty joke.
If I knew that I was punning so close to the Nobilis of murder, I might think twice, but I have no idea.
Yeah, kind of going
It's
against
true.
the grain on that one.
I just can't desert the project at this point.
Yeah. And these puns are getting too hot to handle.
Adam is currently physically trying not to just drop rocks on all of us, kill us, and end the campaign.
I
Yeah,
was
I can see it.
Savoring the heady bouquet of those sand puns.
The rage was delicious.
So,
Thank you.
you are able to keep moving a little bit. You trash talk the sand with all of the grace and sophistication of a heavily concussed hockey player.
Ooh, let me write that one down for future use.
And you continue to move forward a little bit. I am going to need from each of our player characters a coordination plus dodge. So that's going to be 4 for Lissa. That's going to be 2 for Romnet. And that's going to be 1 for Leorian. Anybody can decide to use an aspect miracle here if they wish to.
I'm going to hope that Lady Luck smiles upon me yet again, because I got 0 matches for that first roll of 4.
All right.
Do I know, am I aware that I am dodging a thing, or is this just, congratulations, there's a thing to dodge?
Still nothing.
You have just enough forewarning that you can decide whether you wish to roll or use a miracle.
I suppose my question is, forewarning of what?
Sudden movement out of the corner of your eye.
Okay.
There is something
Aspect miracle
that you didn't know was there, moving just barely within your perception. So aspect miracle will be the equivalent of maxing out your 2-die roll at 2 10s. That just leaves Leorian. You have a coordination of 1 and a 0 dodge.
Yeah. I was going to say, what does an aspect miracle do for me? Because the best possible roll is 110.
Basically, so there is a mechanic in the one roll engine and Rain in particular called the Hail Mary, where you can basically try to do something that you don't have a chance of success in, and if you get the equivalent of a critical success, you can do an okay job at it. That's what an aspect miracle would do for you here.
Yeah. Since this roll is not merely mostly impossible, but literally impossible, I will use an aspect miracle and miraculously do okay.
All right. The sand around your feet simply disappears. It doesn't fall away. That's something you could handle. It just goes. And each of you in your own way manage to sort of twist out of the way of what emerges. And then you see that Fewa has essentially elevated out of where there was sand just a moment ago. She's holding a finger over her lips and has reached out to try and with one hand contain your movement away from her.
Incidentally,
Immediate reactions. Yes.
Oh, hi!
Drew Does Drew sense my use of an aspect miracle? If so, does he clock it?
Oh, because he kind of pulled us all close, didn't he? Would all of us sense it at this point in time?
Well,
I recant my statement of in character.
Sure, yeah. I am going to rule that is going to be an in-character choice for Drew. You definitely sensed your aspect miracle and another similar miracle. I'm going to leave it to you whether or not you would have sort of cast about for it and pinned it to Romnet.
In the midst of all of this, yeah.
Yeah, I might not be doing very good math right at the moment, because the thing I'm thinking right at this moment as the sand disappears is if we're falling slowly. That's another ghost miracle for me, and I'll hold up the other two as best I can. I may notice something strange happening. I might feel reverberations from both sides of myself, of the kind I may be only expecting on one side. But I will rule as an in-character decision.
Did Lissa use a ghost miracle? Or an aspect miracle?
I'm sorry? What was the question?
Oh, she didn't.
Lissa,
she just rolled.
Okay.
Alyssa did not. She just rolled, yeah.
So yeah, let's say that I felt a kind of energy from the side with Romnet on me that felt like maybe that should have been Lissa, but I may not be clocking all of this completely.
Sure.
Let's say I'm dimly aware. I think that's the most in-character decision. This might be the seed of realizing something weird is going on, but this isn't floating in midair is probably not the best time to discuss it.
I am leaving this to Dez. Mm-hmm. I asked him if Avia... Because Mavia was around, so Mavia knows.
Right.
So some part of Lissa knows.
Correct.
And I wonder if this would be enough to spark a brain tickle, as it were.
It might be. You are in very close proximity, and he did just use this miracle. You would have definitely felt that there were two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what is the, range of noticing a level 1 aspect miracle?
Well, if you are not trying to disguise it, it is within your Auctoritas. Aspect miracles that affect the self, right, are not obvious as such unless they exceed mortal bounds. You're not doing that. So you could just be surprisingly athletic to anybody further than 5 feet away. But within that roughly 5 foot radius...
5 feet away. Or rather,
Lissa is.
Yeah,
okay.
I am within 5
feet
of you.
It's just a matter of attention here. Yeah.
What do you say, Des?
I think he said probably a brain tickle.
Brain tickle. Okay. I'm too busy doing a double take in Romnet's direction with a very quizzical expression on my face to respond to Feywa for the time being.
Yeah, do either of our other players have immediate reactions to Feywa's sudden and dramatic appearance here?
I'll sort of tilt my head, but not say anything, because instructed to not say anything.
Indeed.
I'm squinting, and my tongue is maybe sticking out of my mouth like the aforementioned concussed hockey player working on a really hard math problem as I try to make us levitate or at least fall with grace. But I do make eye contact with her. I do sort of as if to say, your move?
With that, Feywa sort of reaches out. She doesn't touch anybody, but she sort of encircles with a gesture this whole group of 4 plus Puff, and all of you descend back into the sand, and it closes over you. The darkness is absolute. This is particularly nice for Lissa, probably net neutral for Romnet, and maybe a little claustrophobic for Leorian. Up to you. Either way, you are now below the sand in a small sort of, opening. What's the word I'm looking for? Here, like bubble. In the sand with Feywa. She gives you a slightly embarrassed smile and says to all 3 of you, I apologize for involving you in this, but, well, I don't wish to be located right now by that pair, and I don't blame you for following after them, but I wanted to have a chance to talk to you about it first. Apologies for startling you. Puff pops up out of her hood and puts his head on her shoulder, kind of watching you warily. Lissa, you can see all of this perfectly, despite the fact that there's no light. Romnet, your smoking void skull helps you out here quite a bit. Leorian, you have no idea. You hear her talking, but you can't see anything.
Did you get my message then? I usually ask for consent before doing that sort of thing, but they seemed pretty determined to enter the inn, and I had no other way of giving you a heads up.
She shakes her head slightly. She says, well, it was an appreciated effort, and it let me know that something was coming, so thank you. She inclines her head a little bit. And she says, there is, well, I suppose more than I am likely to have time for here, and if you will excuse some candor on my part, there is much that I do not wish to go into if I don't have to, but I am in something of a vulnerable state. My enemies have picked up on this and sent their lackeys to do their dirty work, I see. So
they wish to harm you.
In so many words, yes. I don't wish to pull you into this, but I fear that you may be in it anyway. She glances significantly at Leorian, but only Romnet and Lissa see it.
I don't need to see the glance to feel empathy. So my god and I happen to both be on the run. This is a lovely bubble, by the way. We're not dying or suffocating or anything, which is excellent. Right? We're not. No, we're not. So being a bit of a fugitive myself and being in the service of a god who is perhaps a fugitive as well, I think we perhaps ought to foster some sort of fellow feeling, at least, if not alliance. You don't have to tell me any more of your troubles than you wish, but know that even beyond that very slick telepathy trick earlier, more than a trick, of course, we are here with you and for you.
She gives you a little
Are
bit
you
of
divine,
a
then?
smile. She sighs and she says, I shall dissemble no longer. Indeed I am. It was necessary to conceal it before, for she nods above the bubble. Obvious reasons, but I am divine. And I would be somewhat outside my remit to request help from other divine beings such as yourself, but she stiffens mid-sentence and says, oh dear. They appear to have brought soldiers. I must be away, but I sense that you probably wish not to see this town sacked. Is that correct?
Yes, that's a bit why we're here to begin with, to kind of save the town and make it possible for them to grow crops again.
Oh, I see. She looks a little bit apologetic and says, no, I'm afraid that won't be possible. But if I can solve my problems, I would be happy to help them adapt to desert life.
Are you with Ventis?
She gives a slightly tight smile and says, without indicating to whom she is responding, you could say that. Regardless, I know of no particularly effective way to reverse what is happening here in terms of the change to the land, but you would be surprised how bountiful the desert can be. I must go, but I will deposit you where you can most effectively defend the town. Thank you for your, politeness and your help. And she makes an abrupt gesture with her left hand, and the bubble, splits with her in one part and the three of you in another, and you feel the sensation of movement, a little bit careening, and then you are ejected from the sand on the far side of town, and you can see a strange, smallish army, maybe a few hundred people. They are afoot, lightly armored, mostly carrying spears, and they are advancing over the dunes on Luronton.
I'm sorry, I have to admit I was waiting for and that's where we'll end our session today. No, you left a pause. You don't get to say it.
No, I wasn't going to. It reminded me to check how long we've been going.
Oh, okay.
For the record, I was waiting for the same. I was like looking at the time. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, basically.
Is anyone obviously at the front of this army? Are they marching behind anyone?
No. They actually appear to be in one shoulder-to-shoulder file across a few dunes.
Do any of them have an Ectortos?
No.
That's a relief, at least. That's a highly manageable number of people.
Yeah, right. Where do they look like they're from? Can we tell from where we're standing?
Well, with human sight, let's go ahead and have a roll, unless you wish to use an aspect miracle. That would be sense plus sight, which for Leorian would be 4 dice.
Sure, let's give it a go. That is no matches.
Pair of 9s.
All right, that was on 5 dice from Romnet. Romnet, you sort of squint a little bit, seeming to sense that there's something a little uncanny about this, and then you realize what it is. These aren't people. They're people-shaped, but they are made of rock.
I pass that along.
Oh. Are they angry rocks?
I don't know, Lissa. That's your domain.
They are utterly emotionless rocks.
They are animated rocks, probably, stone and darkness and that pair.
At this time, I am going to do something that I am sure is going to be extremely popular with my players, and I am going to ask Drew once again to join me in side chat.
Oh boy.
No.
Do you want new gods? Because this is how you get new gods.
Yeah.
I solemnly swear that there will not be...
That you are up to no god?
Whoa. We just got Leorian.
I'm headed to side chat.
I'll see you there.
Bye, Felicia.
I'll miss you.
Good luck.
What the fuck?
Okay, I'm here.
Yeah. While Romnet and Lissa are having this conversation about the nature of these stone soldiers, you hear Dosk's voice, not so much in your mind as in your soul. And it says, look, this is going to sound like kind of a weird request, but just go along with it. If anybody dies, I need you to say a prayer commending their souls to me. Can you do that?
I mean, sure. I mean, hello, hallowed one. He whose name shall never. There's no time for that. Yes, of course. By anyone, you mean, You don't mean the rock people?
No, people. Yeah, people.
Yeah,
Certainly.
sure, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, loud and clear. Commending your any specific commendation, just general commendation of them to you. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, that should work. I don't think there needs to be a formula or anything, but yeah, if anybody who dies around you, you're good at this. You're a musician. You know how to do it. Just come up with some official sounding words to commend their souls to me, and we should be good to go.
I'm honored, and I will not let you down. And that my God would compliment my improvisation skills is more than I could have possibly asked for. I will not let you down.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Right. Shit. And then he's gone. See you back in general.
See you back in general.
Well, she left.
Oh.
She figured it would be rather longer, I think.
She left and became a god.
Robin has ascended to the invisible clergy.
Robin has ascended. Yeah, exactly.
All right, so you've come up out of the ground on the edge of town. You have seen the stone soldiers, and while Ramnet and Lissa sort of evaluate the threat, Leorian goes a little vague for a moment and then kind of comes back into the present with a little
Before I come back, any listeners who are art history nerds, the facial expression would be Caravaggio's conversion of St. Paul. I look utterly at peace and yet thunderstruck.
Good pull.
Yeah.
Almost made Adam spit with the art history reference. I'll get there.
One day. So, a single file formation of a couple of hundred of stone soldiers is advancing on Luronton. You don't know where Feywa went under the sand, and you're not sure where Thoralda and Tohil are.
To make, I thought the quicksand thing was kind of a neat trick. So I'm just gonna make the sand under their feet angry, or at least implore it to become angry about the encroachment of stone on both it and someone who is either responsible for it or reporting to the entity responsible for it. Yeah, that's what I'm just gonna try to buy us more time to figure out what we're gonna do by mimicking Feywa's quicksand.
You are shocked at how easy this miracle is. This is for the listener, lesser creation of fury over a fairly wide area, and the sand immediately, it's not as elegant and focused as Feywa's quicksand, but the sand just kind of, chaos everywhere, and then when it starts to settle, you don't see the rock soldiers for a few moments, feeling a little triumphant, until, of course, they simply walk out of the side of the dune, unperturbed by the sand around them.
Mm-hmm.
You hear the bell on Town Hall in Luronton start to ring.
Leorian? I'm sorry. I don't know what maybe I can do against stone, but I may have to find out.
I may need to see it then, I suppose, but give me a chance first. How far are the stone army? How far is the stone army? How far are the stone people from us at this point?
Let's call it 100 yards.
I begin to run toward them, and I take out my lure, and I square myself in front of the host, and I play a firm and triumphant melody at them.
Okay. So this would be our listeners' first time encountering your particular use of these weapons. Because weapons, indeed, they are. So this is an unusual thing where the pool that gets used here is command plus perform music, but it is combined with a misplaced confidence. So all of the attacks are at difficulty 3 or more. Yeah, we're going to see this kind of take place. Do describe both the music that you play and which instrument you are primarily attacking with here, because you can really only use one at a time, even if you're actually playing both.
Right. Yeah, I'm going for the lure on this one. It being a bit farther range and also nominally, possibly, potentially, hopefully more lethal. So for those who've not seen a lure, it's a large brass instrument. It doesn't sound entirely unlike horns you've heard, but it's got sort of a throatiness to it. And the music I play is a battle fanfare. One of my sisters was a military woman, and it's perhaps something she described to me or perhaps even hummed for me. And it's a melody that will shake this battle and make it end before it has begun. And I put all of my intent behind it.
Okay.
Not gonna lie, was kind of disappointed when you described it as horns, because I was really hoping for combat tuba.
It's not untuba like. It's like the sound is actually I don't know, it almost sounds more like there's no plunger, but it's the sounds you can get are almost trombone-y. But it is a battle tuba would not be inaccurate. It predates both of those instruments. But yeah, battle sousaphone, perhaps, because it is portable.
Incredible.
So your pool for this is 6 plus an expert die, so go ahead and set your expert die to what you wish to roll. I recommend setting it at 3 or higher, because of the difficulty.
I'll set it to 6 on the off chance that we can increment the metal counter.
Okay,
and then I will roll. Is that the right number of dice? Yes, it is. Here we go. That is 3 2s.
Well,
or a pair of 6s, interestingly.
You're going to go with the pair of 6s because the 2s won't get past your misplaced confidence difficulty.
Yep. I was getting real worried till I saw that other 6.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a pair of 6s.
All
Not
right.
3, regrettably.
So you start playing this tune, and seemingly spontaneously, without anything in particular actually seeming to physically affect it, one of the figures in the middle of the line has its right arm simply shattered. This comes as a surprise both to the soldier whose arm is shattered and to everybody watching.
How close is Luronton to this army now?
Oh, probably about half the distance between you and the army, so 50 yards away.
I'm gonna nod at Romnut. There's still the nod is slightly limned with confusion. Like the gesture has some vague tickling of familiarity that I'm not quite able to place. And then I'm going to sprint up to where Luronton is and say, whatever you're doing, keep it up. And pull out a Lecto. And once again, try to slow their progress by making the sand beneath them unstable.
Okay. It works similarly to last time, where it temporarily messes with their movement. It's effective in slowing them for a few moments before they simply march out of the side of the dune again. Romnut, are you up to anything in particular?
I think that I should probably go and secure the townsfolk.
All right. So, Romnut, you are heading back towards the town. You're not very far away. But it has become something of a hive of activity since you turned your attention away from it last with the ringing of the bell. And you head back in that direction. Luronton, another attack roll if you would, 6+ an expert die.
Sure, sounds good. I'll keep that thing at 6. I'm keeping the faith.
Okay.
That is it's 2 6s again. I'm being teased.
That's amazing.
So you rolled a 6 and a 9?
There is a 9 in there.
Nice.
You see another right arm get blown off of another stone figure in the distance. This is great because their spears are held in their right arms, so they continue to advance without going back for their spears. 2 spears down.
98-ish more to go.
Yay.
Bottles of beer in the stone hands. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to change
Bottles
my
of
attention
spear
to
in the
doing
stone hands?
I'm going to change my attention to doing a lesser creation of fury on the stoneman
Mhm.
instead. And, clearly there is access to better stones and minerals based on the domain. Why are they doing something like marching towards this little town when they could be collecting better stones for themselves?
Interestingly, your miracle finds no purchase. You expected that there would be some sort of animating spirit here. There is not. There is just soulless rock, which literally you've never seen before.
I think this one falls under the well shit.
You come into Luronton, and people are either sheltering in their homes or they are arming themselves and moving to the edge of town. A sort of terse determination. The primary sort of directors of the activity here appear to be Master Owain of the Honeydew and a surprisingly solid Urian. He is not barking orders like a drill sergeant, but he does seem to know what the steps to take are, as he sort of directs people to either shelter or caches of weapons that they can try to use to defend themselves. Before we get anything else there, though, I would like for Ramnet to roll his 2-die pool for coordination plus dodge.
Oh no.
Do I have warning or nah?
Not so much, no.
Okay. No success. 2 and a 9.
All right. Let me make a roll here. You are suddenly bodied over by something that you did not so much see as hear. Splintering of wood, a sibilant sound of sand flying. You take 1 shock to the torso, though. It was not something aimed at you. So your damage is relatively minimal. But you are sort of tumbling in the central square of Luronton now, and as you sort of clear your smoking void vision, you see that part of the reason that this has happened is that there is a rather destructive physical confrontation going on between Thoralda, Tohil, and Fewa. Fewa is holding in her right hand what looks for all the world like a 3.5 foot long sewing needle, proportionately larger than your average sewing needle, made of some sort of reddish metal. In fact, you've seen it before. She showed
Made
it to
of
you.
Bloodstone.
Yeah, and glinting in the sunlight. The thread that is looped through it, however, seems as though it is gold. And the actual filament of it is probably about half an inch, third of an inch in diameter. And an extremely impressive amount of gold to have in one place, particularly as just what seems to be thread. She is fending off hammer blows with this needle from Thoralda, while Tohil circles and tries to swoop in at her at opportune moments. So far, they don't seem to have gotten to her. But she is using the sands of the dunes to sort of obscure her position, to blast at her opponents, and to, in some cases, move herself around. The fight is happening very quickly and very destructively. The reason you didn't see it coming is because it came through a warehouse, which is now
What is the
scattered.
it in question?
The fight.
Like, what? No. What hit me?
One of the combatants. You're not sure which one. You didn't see.
Oh, I just got punched? Rain?
Bodied.
You got hit by a moving body.
Okay. Well. I don't know what you're fighting about, but could you maybe take it fucking elsewhere?
There is a half-beat pause in the combat at this. And it looks like both Fewa and Tohil might be about to say something when Thoralda swings their hammer again. And the fight is back at the races. Let's jump real quick back out to the advancing army here. First off, presuming you have continued to play, I'd like another roll from Leorian for perform music, 6+ an expert die.
Sure. Can I do an aspect miracle to go with this one? I'm going to spend 2 aspect miracle points to do sort of world record performance. I play, I will play about as loud and about as fast as any being with a lure has ever done.
Okay, so here's how that
Before
works.
I remembered it was a horn, I was thinking that this was going to be like math rock levels of guitar.
That's the lute. That's give it time.
So
instead, we're just stuck with battle ska.
This is a jazz war. Yeah, exactly. Ska, yeah, battle ska's right.
I have some songs I could pull up.
Yeah, I believe it.
So the way that this works, multiple actions in the one roll engine drop one pool from the die and then require a set for each action. So your first one to go would be your expert die. That would be 6 dice. Those would all be 10s under this. So you would need to have, like I say, a pool of 3 and 3, right? For 2 attacks. 3 attacks, you'd be down to 5, right? And you would have then a pool of 3 and a pool of 2, because you wouldn't be able to necessarily get 3. So I'm thinking that probably what this is 2 headshots.
Okay.
So you immediately begin to play in a way that actually sort of blasts sand around you. And you see actually several more impacts that are not as precise or as efficacious on this advancing army, which is now probably only about 20 yards away from you. But near the middle of the line in front of you, 2 of these stone soldiers, you see their craniums just kind of like, turn into clouds of rock shards and immediately patter to the sand and they crumple as apparently
truly I only stop long enough to breathe, and that faster than is natural, but in that time I am inordinately satisfied with myself.
Alyssa?
I'm gonna pray to Dosk.
Okay. What is your prayer?
I'm just gonna be like, hey, buddy, how are you doing? It's Lissa. I don't even know if you can hear this. This is not my sort of thing. Don't often pray, but there's currently an army approaching my hometown, and your little buddy is doing a great job of, removing their heads and arms, and I really don't want to have to rely on Mavia, so if you could just give him a little boon, that would be awesome.
I love this prayer.
That was really the kind of prayer that Dosk would respond to, I think. I mean, not that it's my choice anymore, but
yeah. Let's get you a charm plus graces 5 dice.
Yay. Math is hard. There we go. I have 2 7s.
All right. You don't get any kind of response, but Leorian, you feel sort of the hand of Dosk upon you, not literally, but, in kind of a figurative sense. You feel that the channel through which your power of tempo arrives widens for a moment, and your aspect miracle intensifies, and you sort of end up with an exclusion zone where the middle of the line of soldiers cannot get closer to you within a certain radius. They can go around you outside of that radius, but they have to sort of break their path to do this. Ramnet, you have sort of, shaken yourself and are starting to pick yourself up, having asked, for this fighting to be done elsewhere. It has resumed, sort of just the same. Anything in particular that you are going to attempt at this point?
I would like to look at them in the site to see who's... to try to figure out who has the least Auctoritas going on.
Tohil has the least Auctoritas going on. The next one up is Theralda, and Fewa, having not had one before, is now actually hard to look at directly with the sight.
So, yeah. As she said, after a fashion. Can I quantify an Auctoritas on the unfortunately charming bat?
Perhaps. Let me click over here real quick. Less than yours. About on par with Lissa's.
And
Which
Lissa's 3?
2.
2, okay. Cool. So I am the Duke of Murder.
Mm-hmm.
And a lesser creation of murder is miracle level 4? Question mark?
A lesser creation is 4, yes.
You have to add penetration past that.
I am aware of this. This is why I started by looking in the site. So I will spend 2 miracle points to create a murder of our bat, I won't say friend. Specifically, I'm creating of him a murder victim with already a weapon and a murderer in evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no!
Why must the clue be so easy on this one?
So
it was Feva in the town with the needle.
you feel this miracle take shape, and just before it is, in the instant that this all happens, very, very quick, Tohil sort of turns his head in your direction And at that moment, Puff leaps from Feywa's hood at Toheel, claws and teeth flying, passes unimpeded through his Octoritas, and begins simply to tear. They fall out of the sky and out of your sight.
I was not
And I
expecting this animal on animal violence.
The beans are fighting. We're not aware that this is happening at all currently.
Not at the moment, no.
Okay.
As they fall, I'm going to make a roll for Toheel. Okay. As they fall, Ramnet, you feel a shudder run through the ground. A moment later, Lissa, Leorian, you feel it as well. And then you won't necessarily know exactly what the mechanics were until later, but what causes this is a disappearance of the bedrock beneath the sand under the town of Luronton. The whole town and a few of its environs immediately enter free fall for about 150 feet.
Ooh!
Sorry.
Ramnet.
Oops.
2 dice to dodge, or for athletics. The pools are the same. Up to you.
Aspect miracle?
Aspect miracle will do it. You land with a painful impact, but no particularly lasting injury. Leorn and Lissa, you are far enough on the outside here that you are not free-falling so much as tumbling down a sort of funnel of sand. This is a pretty significant plunge, but there is also kind of a lot going on physics-wise in it. You roll to a stop near the bottom and look around. There are dead and injured, broken buildings. Some buildings weirdly intact looking, other than like their windows and a couple of pieces of like wainscoting, and everything in between. There's a stunned moment. Very little moving. And Leorian, your gaze falls on one of the townsfolk who was arming themselves. They appear to have fallen in exactly the wrong way on their own spear. Lying in a pool of blood. They're definitely not getting up. You know what? Go ahead.
Yeah. I begin to speak. I'm choked by what are probably tears, but there's more in there than that. And I take a deep breath and try to compose myself, and I say, looking at this person as though I'm speaking to them directly, I say, this world has given you lack, but now in abundance do I give you nothing. I commend this soul to Dosk.
You actually feel the words taking sort of a life of their own outside of your speech of them. And instantly, Leorian disappears. A moment later, there is a tumult of color and sensation for our other Nobilis. And when it resolves, you find that you 3, Feywa, and Thoralda, with no sign of Tohil, are splayed out in various configurations that look like the aftermath of a collision mid-slope on a skiing resort. Sprawled about a cool and seemingly kind of desaturated grassy plateau. The sky seems very close, though it is empty. And there's no life in evidence around you, other than the other divines that you seem to have ended up here with. The only one on their feet is Leorian. And Leorian, you feel strangely at home. And that is where we'll end our session.
Poor Lissa didn't even get to scream.
Indeed not. Not this time, anyway. So, everyone can get 1 mortal and 1 divine experience point for this session.
Ooh.
Woo.
Thank you for joining us. I do hope everyone enjoyed it, players and listeners alike. Des?
Oh, no. It will keep. Sorry.
All right. I'll hope that our listeners will join us next time as well. You probably know where to listen to this if you are hearing me now, but if anyone's wondering, we can be found almost any place one can listen to podcasts, as well as on the wider web at dicepunks.com and on Twitter as @dicepunks. And with all that, I think we're ready to say farewell. Say goodbye to the kind folks at home, players.
Thanks for listening, and this world seems to be sinking. Let's make a better one.
Thanks for listening, everyone. And no matter your feelings about your hometown, you probably don't want this level of a cataclysmic disaster to strike it, so bear that in mind the next time you think poorly about it.
Thanks for listening, folks. And remember, and this is not legal advice, I'm not your lawyer, when you create a murder, make sure to do it where no one's watching.
And as the poet once said, wolves are going to hunt the shepherd's flock and tear them apart. Thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in, and stick around through the admin stuff for Lissa giving a killer line. The songs in this episode, Theme of the Dice Punks and its acoustic version, were written and recorded by the Baron of Tempo in his element, Drew. Cover art is by Joanne, who has appeared on the podcast now and again. Check out her work around the internet, where she goes by Anything Sows. Site design and graphics for dicepunks.com are by Robin, the player behind Lissa, the Nobilis of Fury. Rain and the one-roll engine it runs on were created by Greg Stolze, whose work can be found in a lot of places, but start at gregstolze.com. Nobilis was created by Jenna Caterin Moran, and you can find her really fascinating work at afarinsunlessland.wordpress.com. Links to both of those systems and authors can be found on the Punk Grimoire section of our website, dicepunks.com. Thanks for listening. If you liked what you heard, that's reward enough on its own, really, but if you're so inclined, you can help us out by rating and reviewing us wherever you listen to us, telling your friends who you think would like us to give us a listen, or by heading over to our Patreon at patreon.com/dicepunks. Patron rewards include a Discord and access to the Dice Peaks After Show for episodes 1 and following, where we have a lot of fun, and I think you should check it out if you're interested. Regardless, we do hope you'll tune in again, and until then, remember, subtlety is for cowards.
One of the most common requests I get are for various niche utensils used around the house, spoon rests, garlic presses, the like. They're not my favorite thing to make. I usually turn those down, but I'll make an exception every once in a while, depending on the client. The local baker was as sweet on the eyes and ears as the confections that she made. Unfortunately, her latest shipment of sugar arrived as a hard loaf rather than something granular, and I overheard her venting about how she much preferred sugar that she could scoop rather than scrape with a butter knife. It was not a commission, but I set about making her a fine sugar axe nevertheless as a surprise. I brought the beautiful thing to her wrapped in velvet, only to find that she'd already used all of the sugar loaf just to be rid of it. A baker without sugar is like a blacksmith without a hammer, so I proffered the axe, and she handed me some sweets with a blush as an exchange. Sensing my opportunity, I asked if she needed a softer kind of sugar. Rest assured, dear listener, that I loaned her far more than a cup.